Life. I'm Denise Medved and I'm your host. I'm also the creator and founder of the Ageless Grace Brain Health Program worldwide. It's in 50 US states and it's also in 30 other countries. And I'll tell you more about that later. So we know that when we talk about inviting more grace, more pleasure, more elegance of movement into our lives, that it's not just about our physical surroundings, although that can definitely influence our ability to experience, see, and appreciate grace, but it's also about the physical part of you that is your body, but it's not just your body, it's also your brain, which controls all the movement of the body. And the brain also controls the emotions and the emotional self that is also you. We also have the body, the brain, and the mind, which is your awareness or consciousness of what's around you. What do you believe? How do you feel? Then we also have the mental part of you, not just the mind and the brain, but that mental processes part of you, the mental state. Sometimes we call that the monkey mind that is talking to us, that is thinking, that is figuring things out, that's planning, that's thinking of the past or the future. And then we come to the spirit of you, that unique thumbprint that is just you. It's nobody else, your spirit, and what nourishes your spirit and makes you feel like you have more pleasure and joy and grace and beauty in your life. And finally, we come to the spiritual self. And today, we're going to be talking about nurturing your spiritual self. So, first of all, what is your spiritual self? Well, what I'd like you to do for this conversation is to get comfortable. You'll notice that I don't have my shoes on. I never do on this show because I'm here to experience more grace and pleasure in my life, and I'm here to connect with the earth and feel through those 7,000 nerve endings in each foot that connects to my whole central nervous system and brain. And I'm here to be able to enjoy being here watching and talking with you. So barefoot is always the best way for me, and I invite you to take your shoes off. Find your best, most comfortable chair. I call it the Goldilocks chair, the one that's not too hard, it's not too soft, it's not too big, it's not too small. It's just right for you, and this is my Goldilocks chair. It's just perfect for me. So my feet can touch the floor. I can sit away from the back. I can lean back and I can lift both feet up. It's the perfect chair. So maybe you want to find something to drink beside you, a glass of water or a cup of tea, or maybe even a snack while you're watching this. So the spiritual self is that part of you that connects with, recognizes, feels, senses that there's something greater than just yourself. Something greater than just myself, a divine being, a higher power, all that is. Some people call it love, some people call it God. I call it God. It can have many, many names, but whatever it is that you connect to in your faith, your belief system, your religion, your denomination, is what we're talking about. And how do you nourish that spiritual aspect of yourself and not totally rely on others? So what I mean by that is that traditionally, the way we practice some sort of spiritual nourishment is in a group or an organized faith, religion, church, temple, whatever it may be. And we tend to be in part of a community, which is wonderful. That community, that social interaction, that spiritual belief system, that support for each other is very, very powerful. And if that is the way you connect with your spiritual self, I bow to you. That's a wonderful thing to do. And we all might look at that as a practice that we want to embrace in our lives to give us more grace. But what I'm actually talking about when I'm talking about nurturing your spiritual self is building a fortitude with your own personal spiritual belief system that you create, that you support, that you help sustain by creating your own personal relationship with that higher power that is part of your belief system. And how do you sustain that? So, I'm going to talk about 4 peas in a pod. Sounds like cooking, doesn't it? But it's actually related to nurturing your spiritual self. So, there are 4 P's that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about pick your practice. That's 1 P, even though there are 2 P's in there. The second one is prepare for your practice. The third one is practice your practice. And the fourth one is pay attention to your practice. Tweak it, change it, and repeat. So the 4 P's can help you if you don't already have something in your daily life that could be 5 minutes long every day. It could be in the morning, it could be at night. It could be an hour long, 20 minutes long. It doesn't matter, because guess what? It's your spiritual practice. It's your way. So you are going to create it yourself if you haven't created it already. And if you already have a spiritual practice that you use every day to sustain and nurture you on a divine level, on a soul level, then you might want to listen to some of these ideas that we're going to talk about in this episode and incorporate some of them and change it up a little bit. Because practices are wonderful, but sometimes when we repeat them exactly the same over and over and over again, they start to become almost rote or automatic. And we never want the nourishment of our spiritual soul to be rote or automatic. You could change it up every day. You could change it up once in a while. You could change it up once a week. It's totally up to you. But these are ideas of ways to nurture your spiritual self. So first of all, let's look at the word nurture. I think of nurture as something that a mother or a father does with their children. They're nurturing. They're giving them all the tools that they need, the atmosphere, the ambiance, the advice, the input, the knowledge, the wisdom to be able to get to that place where they are self-sustaining in a most positive and beautiful way. So I think of nurturing your spiritual life or your soul as the same thing. You are choosing what are the things that will keep me strong, that will keep me focused, that will give me a foundation and a rock to rely on, that will help me have hope and faith when things get rocky and difficult, as they are right now in the world. Things are challenging and difficult and confusing, and it shakes the faith and belief of many of us, regardless of what that faith and belief is. So nurturing can also mean nurturing something that you want to grow. I'm a gardener, and I love planting a bulb in the fall and then starting to see it. I just went out yesterday and I noticed things that were peeping through the earth and things that were making little green leaves and a few things that were starting to show color. And that nurturing, creating the right atmosphere, the ambiance, the patience that it takes to nurture something into growth is akin to gardening. So you can think of it whichever way you like to. Maybe an artist would nurture a painting along where they paint a little bit every day, or a writer might nurture a book along where they write a little bit every day. But what they're doing is they're growing, nurturing, supporting, sustaining something that will grow into something bigger and more beautiful and more magnificent. So we're talking about those 4 P's and how we're going to nurture ourselves through those 4 P's. So the first one is pick your practice. Now that sounds simple. You may say, oh, I've already picked it. I've been a Methodist or a Catholic, or I've been a Hindu for all my life. Well, that is your religion. But do you have a daily practice that nourishes and sustains your soul, your spiritual self, that part of you that's greater than just your body? So picking your practice means, what is the one thing or maybe there are more than one, that really feels like would connect you with the divine, with the sacred. So it could be still, for example, like you might want to sit still and quiet and connect to that higher power. You may want to meditate and take a certain amount of time in a certain way that you have learned or practiced before. Or you may want to learn to meditate and create a meditation practice for yourself. You might want to be still and listen to something. Maybe you're playing a podcast or a CD. It could be a music, it could be a voice, it could be a spiritual leader that nourishes you and sustains you. Maybe you want to do either one of those things moving. Maybe you want to walk and move out in beautiful nature as you're listening to something, a podcast or music or a beautiful spiritual reading with earbuds in your ears. Maybe you want to simply look around you and maybe take photographs as you are doing your spiritual practice. Some of you want to sit and write in a journal, and that helps you connect with the divine, writing about your innermost thoughts or being inspired by something greater than yourself, to write about something that anchors you and gives you hope and faith. Another thing that you could do is actually read a reading. I have many books on my bookshelf. That's just one of my many bookshelves behind me that are spiritual readings by different spiritual leaders or ministers or people who have written inspirational texts. And sometimes I just pull those out and I sit and read and I think, wow, what wise words from Thich Nhat Hanh, or wise words from Neil Donald Walsh or Caroline Myss. There's so many people that have written beautiful inspirational readings that will resonate with you. That's the one that you want to read. Now, another one is possibly being in the quiet mind space where you have certain practices where you might look at a candle, for example, and quiet your mind for a while and not let it think and interrupt, but let you be and experience that part of you that is divine as well. So there are so many ways to pick your practice. What is it? And some of you, like me, have lived a long time, and so I've done many different spiritual practices. But what has not changed is that I do a spiritual practice every day. For me, it's not just a Sabbath thing or something I do once a week. It's 10, 15 minutes a day. And I like to choose the morning time at the beginning of my day. But you could use any time of day, structured or not structured. You may say, I'm going to read this, I'm going to listen to this, and then I'm going to meditate. And that's what you want to do every day. You have structure to it. That's beautiful and wonderful. More like a ritual, which is what most of us tend to practice in an organized place of worship, where there is a structure to what happens when we are inside that building practicing worship. So I like to do it in the mornings, and I vary it. I don't vary it every single day necessarily, but I will vary it from time to time. I'll say, I've been reading from this book for 4 weeks now, and I think I'm going to not read today. I'm going to actually physically move my body in yoga postures or in walking as I invite in the grace of the sacred. So I may change it up and move it every once in a while, and quite frankly, I don't mean for this to sound petty or trite, but so that I don't get complacent and, like I say, practice something automatically or from rote. So I don't stay connected that way. I want to always change it up so that I feel connected to what I'm doing, whether it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes or longer. So that's pick your practice. And again, that practice can be the same for 100 years if you want it to be, and a ritual that connects you every day. Or it could be something that you create for yourself, where you take certain readings that are spoken to you, certain images, descriptions. You put them all into a little book that's your book, and that's your ritual of faith or ritual of practice. Now, the second P is prepare for your practice. And I love this one because I love feng shui and I love decorating and I love arranging and I love ritual. So, what does that mean? Prepare for your practice. Well, it really means literally prepare a space. Where are you going to do that practice? Because it should be a place that feels sacred to you, honored, and respected. So it could be a place in the corner of your room where you have a mat and some pillows, or maybe you throw some pillows, maybe you have some pretty candles, maybe you have an image that reminds you of the sacred. Maybe it's an angel or a statue of Kuan Yin or a Buddha. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's what I call creating an altar space. And so you create that altar space. It's an altar is nothing more than an arrangement of things that remind you or connect you to the sacred. Just like an altar in the church is certain symbols and images that are set on the altar to remind us of something. So create an altar space in your area and then create a place for you to sit in that altar space. It doesn't have to be a big room. It could be a shelf. It could be a shelf with a chair beside it that's a comfortable chair for you. It could be a yoga mat, as I said, where you sit on the floor with some pretty pillows. It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you arrange some books there. Maybe you have some candles. Maybe you have a certain chair that you love, or maybe you have a beautiful journal that you lay there because you know that part of your practice is writing in that specific journal at that specific time each day. Maybe you have a little music player in that sacred space where you create an altar and a space for you to be connected to the divine. Music is a connector for many people, whether you're being quiet or still or reading or chanting or singing. That can be a form of practice each day as well. And having that music there for you already and in place is the place, a signal to your body and your brain that this is where I'm going to go to nourish and nurture my soul. So the next P is practice your practice. Sounds simple, but that's the hardest step for me. You actually have to do it every day. Once you've picked out what it is and once you've prepared the space, then you need to go to that space at ideally around the same time every day. But there's no set rule around that either. I mean, maybe what you do is maybe you're able to say, I will do this every day when it's the right time, and you're able to do that. I'm not able to do that. I need to do it at a certain time every day because otherwise I get busy and I get sort of sucked up into the world and my daily activities, and I can be falling asleep at night and go, oh yeah, I didn't do my practice today, and I feel sort of disconnected and discombobulated and not like I was grounded today. So I do it at the same time every day when I first get up. But that's up to you. But practice your practice. Here's another thing. If you haven't been doing a practice daily, start slow and build on it. Meaning, say, okay, I'll do this 5 minutes. How many days a week? You don't have to do it every day. It helps me to do it every day. That's my practice because it reminds me of who I really am and who I really want to be in the world and how I want to be in the world, to connect to that powerful divine before my day even begins and remind myself of those things. Because I believe that I am a spiritual being who happens to be having a physical experience. You may believe that or not, but I believe I'm much more than just this body and just this human life that I have. And it's an important and magnificent life and body. And yet I believe that there's more to me than that. And I believe that there's more to you than that too. So you don't have to believe the same way I believe to have your own spiritual practice by any means. And you don't have to do it the same way or the same time or the same amount of time. Just decide, how many minutes do I want to spend on this practice? Maybe you're 30 minutes or 15 or 5. And how many days a week? Do I need to do it every day? Do I want to do it every day? That's another thing. Maybe you desire to do it every day. Set that goal for yourself. And then if you want to really ultimately be able to have 20 or 30 minutes each day, every day, to practice, nurturing your spiritual self, well, then you'll build up to it. But don't go from 0 to 100 miles an hour right away, because then that's a big goal to say suddenly I'm going from no daily practice to doing something 30 minutes every day, 7 days a week. That's a lot. So take bite-sized pieces for yourself and set those goals. And then, here's a key, be flexible for yourself so that you can change it up. You might want to do it differently after you've done this for a week or 2 or 3 and say, this is not quite working for me. I like the idea of it, but I need more what? More music. I need more movement. I need more input from spiritual leaders, and I need to look on Google or the internet and find more out about people that inspire me or that I might be inspired by if I read some of their readings every day or listen to their podcasts. So know that you can be flexible in this practice, right? You don't have to do it the same all the time, and certainly not if you want to do it for the rest of your life. I find that variety definitely is the spice of life, even the spice of my spiritual life. So the last one is pay attention. Pay attention to where you were when you began and where you are now. And of course, if you've been doing this for some time, again, you might just want to add one new thing in or change something up or move your altar to a different place or move your sacred space to a different location in your home or yard. Just to change it up a little bit, to make it fresh and new and remind you like, oh yeah, this is why I want to do this every day, so that it feels new and wonderful and exciting every day to nourish myself and expand who I am and connect with who I really am and want to be. So what do I mean by pay attention? Well, I mean that you might here at this point want to keep a journal, or maybe you just want to reflect and say, how was I when I started this new thing, 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago? Has it changed me in some way? Has it deepened my belief system? Has it uplifted my heart and my soul? Has it given me more balance or more harmony in my life, more peace? Because that ultimately is what most of us as human beings are looking for when we are doing a spiritual practice, is a peace and understanding where we are, where we may be what happens to us, what do we believe, what do we care about. We want a peace and a understanding that passes all understanding. So pay attention, reflect, sit in silence and think about it, make some notes, journal, notice, see if you're increasing your awareness and expanding what you know about yourself and what you believe, because all of that is about consciously choosing to incorporate something that nurtures your soul and your spiritual life every day. And all of that is inviting in more grace. From a spiritual point of view, grace tends to be a gift that's bestowed on you, whether you deserve it or not. It just means that it's being given to you. That grace of peace, for example, that grace of harmony and balance, that grace of joy and happiness deep down in your soul. So it can also mean pleasure, it can mean elegance, it can be all those things, but we're talking tonight about the grace that gives us peace. So I always like to show you a little tool, as we call them in Ageless Grace, of something that you can do physically to connect to whatever it is we're talking about in this episode. So this one may surprise you a little bit. We've done spaghetti spine, and we've done front row orchestra, we've done spelling bee, all different kinds of tools that help you move and connect to your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual self. And today we're going to do one called zoology. And right away, some of you may be thinking, what does zoology have to do with my spiritual self? Well, that very often the soul is called that piece of us, and it's compared to something with wings, or something that takes flight, or something that leaves us and returns to us, or that lives on after us. So the I don't know the exact quote, but one of the quotes about hope is that it's that feathered creature in the soul that rises up against all belief or understanding. Like, why is it there? Well, that's that soul lifting us up, that bigger than us thing. So we're going to do things that fly tonight in zoology, and I'm going to play just a little music for a couple of minutes and get you moving because you've been sitting and listening, and also get you connected to something greater than yourself that might nourish you. By the way, nurturing your spiritual self does not have to be deadly serious. I promise you, I know that from personal experience. It can be lighthearted and fun. You might laugh during your spiritual practice, or you might bubble over with joy and happiness. So here goes the tool of zoology to help us take flight. Okay, so we're going to do flying things. Let's start off first with a little hummingbird, right? So they flutter those wings, and they flutter those feet. They flutter their feathers. And they hum. Hum. Now, another flying creature might be a butterfly. Elegant. Talk about grace and living a graceful life. But remember that the butterfly wasn't always so elegant and beautiful. That butterfly was a caterpillar once, and it lumbered along, right? And it wondered, am I ever going to be able to move more gracefully than this? And then sure enough, one day, it took flight, right? Now what about a robin that tends to hop? Sinus spring, it hops in the yard, flutters its wings a little bit, and takes flight. Or what about an eagle? Big wings from head to toe, big flight. And of course, sometimes they're called screaming eagles because they go, ah, ah! Great big noisy eagles, graceful. But they don't always flap their wings. Sometimes they just soar. So let's soar. Sometimes they spiral. But what's amazing about birds and things that fly is they always make this beautiful, perfect landing, right? Nice job. You may have your heart rate up. It probably felt good to move. I hope it did. So thank you for being with me on Living a Graceful Life. If you want to learn more about some of the tools of Ageless Grace and the exercises we use to stimulate the brain and stimulate those lifelong functions that we need from a physical point of view, you can visit agelessgrace.com, and we have lots of giveaways, a free class, videos that you can watch, and we also have DVDs, flashcards, a playbook. We don't call it a workbook. We have workshops on various kinds of things that will enhance your life and your well-being all the way up to the top of your brain. And there are also wonderful products for sale on the winwinwomen.com store, and I hope you'll go there and visit as well. So this has been Living a Graceful Life, and I want to remind you, it's never too late to begin to make the choices to create the life that you want to live. So I always leave with a what if. What if everyone watching this decided to practice 3 times a week for 5 minutes a day, a spiritual practice that would connect them to something higher, greater, more loving, more forgiving? I think we would change the world. Thank you for being here. Okay. So now I'm going to get right up close. I'm going to fix it so everyone can unmute yourselves.